Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are switching it up a little bit and doing an interview today. We're so pleased to have Sunali Wadehra with us. She is a freelance medical writer. Her company is Wadehra Medical Writing. And she's going to talk to us today a little bit about a recent meeting that she attended, which was the ACEHP. So this is a meeting specifically for people working in the CME space. And so she's going to talk to us a little bit about that experience and kind of some of the main takeaways from that recent meeting. So Sunali, welcome. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Well, thank you for hosting me.
So it's great to have you, but can you tell us a little bit about what you do now and maybe a little bit about your background so that people understand where you're coming from as well?
Sure. So I am the principal writer and business owner of Wadehra Medical Writing. The company's specialty is developing written educational content for healthcare professionals. I launched the business about a year ago after graduating from medical school. I had a bachelor's degree in English. I did a lot of research before and during medical school with a lot of medical writing, and I just thought this was a better fit for me. And here I am.
Awesome, great. So let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts of
Sure.
what we're here to talk about. So what made you decide to attend the ACEHP meeting?
You guys did. I actually saw, I believe it was Maria's post about a suggestion of, instead of networking amongst others who are doing exactly what you're doing, which is valuable, how about networking with your prospective clients?
Mm-hmm.
So she even actually, I believe in that post, mentioned this conference, and I am interested in, I am in CME. So I was thinking, okay, why not do that? Because I wasn't actually able to make it to the American Medical Writers Association conference this year just because of, some conflicts. So I decided to do this one.
Awesome, great.
Yeah,
and I think
her post. That's good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so this meeting it's annually, correct? So it's usually in January, end of January.
Yes.
Is that okay. So that's probably important for anybody thinking about and planning for the future is when it's typically offered. So did you have any initial hesitation about going? Were you thinking, well, is this going to be the right fit? Is this, really where I should be spending my time, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive. The registration for even a member is around $1,000, and then you pay for travel expenses.
Right.
And as business owners, even if we can write off, get tax deductions on our business expenses, it is kind of coming from our pocket. So if it wasn't useful, I would have lost some money, and I was a little bit nervous, but I still did it, but I was nervous.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but I think, and not to jump ahead, but in the end, you feel like that value was there for you overall?
Hands down, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I would do it again. And I definitely will consider good networking opportunities, even if they cost money. I think you get your monies back eventually.
Good. Excellent. And I think that's such an important point, because sometimes maybe there is a little bit of internal hesitation about trying some of these new events. But like you said, if it ends up leading to client work, then it definitely is worth it. So, what was your overall impression of the conference, and did you find that it was different from maybe some other conferences that you've attended?
Overall, people are very laid back. They are very friendly. They're very collaborative. They really liked learning and talking about learning. And it was different from other conference experiences. At least as a medical student, when I went to research conferences, we usually went to what we had to. And people, including, the top scientists there, were out on the town. Here, people are very dedicated to the meeting, which was a positive if you're trying to network.
Yeah. And maybe this is a good place to maybe give some listeners an idea of kind of what the structure was. So was it, for instance, mainly educational in the sense of the types of CME content, or sort of, maybe new and upcoming topics related to the CME world? Can you give maybe just a brief overview of how the meeting was structured in terms of the materials presented?
The keynotes were focused on some of the up and coming trends, but then they also had educational tracks that they organized by educational track, but also in the program they organized by beginner, intermediate, advanced level. So it was a combination of you can keep up with some of the trends, but then you can also follow a track and learn more deeply about a certain topic.
Yeah.
I didn't have a medical writer track per se, but I did jump into things that were about learning and instructional design because that's valuable for us to know about.
Right. And I think it's an important point as well because, for those of us who aren't already in, say, a corporate setting where maybe you have some additional structured guidance on how to develop these materials, I can see the benefit there of just learning some of those ins and outs and maybe best practices of how to develop CME content.
Right.
One other thing that sort of came to mind for me is, did you find that there were a lot of freelancers as well as those working in the corporate space?
There were more people working in the corporate space than freelancers. There were a couple of freelancers there, but for the most part, it was others. However, there were a lot of people who hire freelancers. So it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, so it wasn't a big deal to be one of the very few. It wasn't, in a way, a positive, because then you just kind of conveniently go sit next to them at a session and they're saying, oh, we are looking for a writer. And you're saying, oh, that's great that I'm sitting right here. Nobody else is a freelance writer, so now I can talk to you without stepping on anyone's toes.
Right. And I think that's so important. I think that kind of speaks to what Maria had originally written in that post, is that when you go to these meetings as a freelancer and you're not just one among many, many, many other freelancers, you kind of stand out for that reason.
Right.
So, when you went, did you have a general plan for networking and sort of your broad approach for meeting new people when you went?
I did take some time to look at who might be attending, and I did pay attention to who might be giving talks, if it was somebody I might want to meet afterward, and build a connection. But to be honest, I feel like most of my contacts were spontaneous. Just through everything at the conference. They had some networking events, and then they also had the educational and events that were very interactive, and you just met people from sitting down and being there.
Yeah. And maybe as a follow-up for that, did you find that you had a lot of those sort of more natural opportunities to network? So you said they had networking events, but then there were also just other, just sort of your normal interactions with people throughout the event as well.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the educational sessions had group work too. So you were talking to everybody at whatever seminar you were at the table. So that even in itself was a way to meet people, because, when you talk to someone, you introduce yourself usually.
Yeah, definitely. So were you able to connect with a lot of people through the conference?
I think so. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so you're able to connect with, say, those that were hiring, that were looking for freelancers. So I think one question that comes up, especially for a lot of people who are new to freelancing, is who or what the titles are of those people that are, what some people call the decision makers. So those that will actually end up doing the hiring. Can you speak to that?
I should be able to. I'd have to look at the cards, because they all have a variation of some kind of title. So no, I can't actually. I mean,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah, no.
you might know, actually. You might be able to kind of chime in.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if it, for instance, what I've seen and what I've experienced often, so people with the titles of medical director, sometimes
Yes.
they're people with titles, sometimes they will be senior medical director,
Yes.
sometimes titles like content manager.
Yes.
And all of these people were there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there were people, for instance, I don't want to say higher up, but those people who are in the management position, as well as those who are new and learning and kind of just getting started in this area as well.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think that's an important point because, and I remember earlier you mentioned that there were the different tracks for learning and the educational aspects of it. So I think that's good too, because then you get to meet and interact with those people on the different levels. But I think it also speaks to the field as a whole, and that even, you know, those who have been doing this for a while, there is still that opportunity to learn, you know, to see what those trends are in the field, and to just continue their education as well. But I think it's good to have that mix of people at different points in their careers too within a conference.
Right.
Okay, so do you have any tips that you'd like to share for successful freelance or successful networking at a conference like this? Did you find that maybe you had a certain approach that really worked well for you in trying to make those connections with people?
The main thing I would say is just make sure you have your basics in place. Like everybody asked about a business card, and it doesn't look good if you say, I don't have a business card. So make sure you have your basic things in place and then be your authentic self. That's a common phrase people use. And then you guys actually gave me some advice before the conference that was really useful, is make sure you're getting information from others. Some people don't have business cards. You can actually take your business card and write their information on it and keep it with you where you're collecting the business cards. Because even the very enthusiastic people, for the most part, are going to wait for you to contact them. I did actually have somebody contact me that I didn't even expect a contact from, but for the most part, I'm the one who is following up with people, and you want to have that information.
Right.
And also, I think it's a permission thing, right? It's if you have that information and they give it to you, then there is that permission to contact them again.
Right.
If you haven't done that, it's a little more dicey.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts about, or tips maybe, for establishing, so say when you first go up to meet someone, and I'm kind of just thinking like generally along the lines of like the icebreaker, or, you know, what is, or what was sort of your general approach there? Because I think it's not that easy for everyone. And, you know, some people feel a little bit more maybe hesitant or nervous about it than others. Do you have any thoughts or any comments on that? What worked for you?
I did prepare what they call an elevator pitch. I used it informally. To be honest, when I approach people, I usually just said, hi, I'm Sunali. And they said, hi, I'm this person. Then we would say, hi, where are you from? I'd tell them where I'm from. Slowly, the conversation would get to what we do. It wasn't usually, hi, I'm Sunali. I'm the owner of Wadehra Medical Writing. I offer these services, because that's not how I usually talk to people.
Right.
I thought a very casual approach was perfectly fine. If you're talking to someone, you eventually get what you're there for anyway, and it feels a little bit more natural.
Did you feel like, in thinking about that initial approach, would you recommend to someone to say, to always ask about the other person first and about what they do, and kind of try to draw out some of that information from them. And like you said, instead of just sort of, feeling like you need to lay all of your information out on the table initially, but instead put it in their court and kind of let them, give whatever information they want to share first.
Yes, I remember actually you gave me that advice before, when we had talked before this conference, and you had kind of recommended that, and I absolutely agree. I would see it less of it is a business development opportunity, but I would see it more as a personal interaction and getting to know people. And that would exactly be what you said, is you want to figure out what they're about, and basically what you would do when you meet anyone new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It feel like a stiff formal sales meeting. I mean, I never ever just went up to people and said, I'm offering freelance services or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe a little bit of a misperception, and for those of us that are maybe a little bit more introverted, and when we think of networking, that sort of has a negative connotation, and it's sort of, we might think of it as being this, for lack of a better word, maybe fake or forced interaction. But I think what you're saying is so key, is that you do want it to feel natural, and clients too. Although I think as freelancers, again, we don't typically think of it in this way, but clients want to work with someone that they like on a personal level as well. They want to work with someone that
they're comfortable with.
Yeah, they're comfortable. If you are easygoing, if you're friendly, people obviously come in all shapes and sizes in terms of personalities and traits, but I think those are definite positives, in thinking about clients and, building that relationship with them too.
Right.
So, so you've gone to this conference, you have a lot of business cards, you made a lot of connections. How do you plan to keep in touch with those people that you've met there?
It depends on the contact. Some people, every single person I did a LinkedIn connect with, if they have LinkedIn. And then some people who directly told me, we're looking for freelancers right now, I emailed them. And there was actually someone there locally, which is interesting that I met someone in Mississippi when I was in DC, but we're planning on meeting for coffee. So it really it depends on the relationship, the best way to pursue it. There's a book that I read called The Mighty Marketer by Lori DeMilto that is pretty famous, and she suggests doing a marketing spreadsheet. So I did create a spreadsheet, and she suggests maybe contacting people a couple times a year. So I'm going to log those and sort of figure out the best approach for each person and follow up with people a couple times a year. But yeah, it depends. But those three things, LinkedIn, email, and I think in person is pretty rare. But if there is a situation, then that might happen too.
How many people you've connected with in this conference?
What's that?
How many people would you say you've connected with during this conference?
I think on my list, I have about 10 prospects, 10, and then this is what I call 10 good to just stay connected. And then a list of people who I'm going to just, stay connected, but there were 10 people who were prospects, 10 people I just think would be really good to stay connected to, even if they're not really going to be clients, but they just seem like good people to talk to and stay connected with.
So that's quite the whole.
What's that?
That's quite the whole of people.
Yeah, everybody there, that was something that was really striking to me, but everybody there was there to be social. It was just, that was the environment of the conference, and it is different from other conferences I've been to because it's not always like that. I think other conferences, again, everybody just wants to do what they need to do and then they go out on the town. Here, everybody wanted to be there. So that was really interesting and good for me and the people there.
Yeah, and I think maybe one other thing that comes to mind for me is staying top of mind for those people that you've made those connections with. And I think maybe it was Maria, maybe you wrote about that. It was in a blog post. We talked about this, is that sometimes we feel like maybe we're being a little bit of a pest whenever we are reaching out to clients or prospective clients. And I think it's good to know that, especially if you've met people here, they're saying, yes, we need freelancers. I certainly think it's perfectly fine to follow up with them.
Yes.
And say, hey, you know what, like you kind of have to do the song and dance of waving your arms. But again, because they're busy too, right? So you have to think, okay, I'm going to say, you know what, I have some availability. There's certainly nothing wrong with saying that. Maybe a project dropped out, whatever the case may be for you. Maybe you just find yourself, with a few open weeks, and you just reach out to them again and say, hey, you know what, it turns out I have some availability. Is there something that I can help get off your plate? And I think that's perfectly normal too, especially if they've explicitly said to you, yes, we're looking for freelancers, because ultimately we want to help make their job easier. And, if you're that person getting into their inbox at just the right moment, then you could just be there at the sort of right place and right time to pick up that additional project for them, maybe just when they need it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good advice, actually, because I'm sort of just right now still thinking about the best way to follow up. So I'll kind of think about what you're saying too.
Yeah. And I think, I certainly, again, I think most of us feel like maybe we're being a little bit of a bother sometimes when reaching out, but we sort of just have to, get over that hump. And I'm sure for those of us that have been doing this for a little while and working with clients, a client will tell you sometimes a good freelancer is really hard to come by.
I've heard that.
If you step up and you're that person for them, it's going to make a big difference, and it's going to make their job easier. So I certainly, I wouldn't feel, I wouldn't have that hesitation and kind of, making yourself very visible. And following up, and even following up with them regularly too.
I think that's.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's good advice.
So kind of as we are wrapping up, would you recommend this conference to other medical writers?
For those in the CME space, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Good. So well worth the investment.
Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot too. I mean, you can learn how to do types of writing and do modules and things like that at home from these organizations, but it really does help to just be there and get a feel for just the personality of the field. I got a sense of that from being there, so it was very worthwhile.
Good, excellent. And I think as a follow-up to that, do they offer certification for any of their programs?
They have I think you can be a continuing healthcare professional. I don't know what the title is, but there are some certifications directly related to that I noticed a few of there was maybe one or two freelance writers who had that certification too, but it's a general one that people will take on even if they're not writers. It's just for the field.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's an option.
Excellent. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. Sunali, thank you so much again for your time today and for chatting with us about this conference.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thanks for letting me talk about it. It was a good experience, and I'm glad that I sought out some of the coaching from you guys ahead of time. I thought it was a good use of my time to talk to you guys. It was very good advice.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thanks again.
Okay. Well, have a wonderful day, and thank you.